Hello everyone, this video will cover Module 6. Module 6 is the last module for the argument proposal essay. So you're turning in the final draft this week. You do have the entire week to turn your rough draft into a final draft. If you haven't written a rough draft yet, you probably want to do that first. Looking back at your outline, starting to think about how you can turn that outline into full paragraphs, how those paragraphs go together. Make sure you do leave yourself time to revise. It's always a good idea to plan maybe a few days ahead of when you want to turn the essay in, to give yourself plenty of time to let that essay rest and then go back and look at it again. You'll notice a lot more errors that way than if you try to revise immediately after writing. You're also encouraged to save drafts as separate files, so you could do 2 or 3 files with the essay just to show your writing process, as well as being able to prove that you didn't use AI to create the essay. So that's always something that you can do as if you're worried about being falsely accused, making sure that you are saving the steps in your writing process. So you can see that the module, the only assignment is the argument essay itself. Now we don't have a peer edit yet. We'll do one in the class and that won't be until later. And so you're really encouraged to go through all of those steps in the revising process on your own. You can use AI as a writing tutor though. And I do recommend this is a good way to look at your essay as just to help it use someone with another set of eyes, in this case, a computer. Doesn't have eyes, but so you would go into, I like Perplexity personally. It's a little bit more geared toward higher education, but you would go in and tell it, it's a writing tutor and I would like for you to give me some feedback. You want feedback on errors and specific examples of errors, but you don't want it to make changes for you. And that's the key difference between using AI to help you identify errors and using it incorrectly. So you want to make sure that if it's identifying errors, that it's not making those corrections for you. So other things that you might want to look at, you want to go back up here and check your pre-writing journal, making sure that your topic worked for the assignment. You should have feedback on that already. You can go in your discussion board, but hopefully, at some point in the beginning of the week, usually I'll have some feedback there, as well as on the documentation assignment, to make sure that you're doing those correctly. And then your rhetorical analysis essay should have feedback on it. You can go back and look and see if there's anything that you are having consistent problems with. There's also a little page here just about drafting the argument proposal and just keeping in mind some of the criteria that students often miss. So that clear argumentative claim that you need to make, and then the 2 to 3 supporting ideas with the counter argument. So if you're making a 5-paragraph essay, usually the first 2 are kind of supporting paragraphs, and then the third body paragraph is that addressing an opposing view. In a proposal, the opposing view might not necessarily be an opposite viewpoint. So, if your proposal is to put more playground equipment at the city park, the opposing view is not necessarily going to be, well, we don't need playground equipment because it's a park. Of course they need playground equipment. So nobody's going to argue that. What they're going to argue is we don't have any money for that. And so then you have to concede to that opposing view because basically it's the hurdle that you have to get over, right? It's whatever's blocking the proposal from happening. In this case, if the city doesn't have the funds for it, what can we do instead? Well, we can apply for grants. We can have a fundraiser. There's all kinds of things that we could do to start to build up the funds in order to put in that playground equipment. So it's not necessarily an opposite side like you might think of as a multi-sided argument. So that's something just to think about, just keeping in mind the criteria. That proposal, you want it to be very specific. That's generally the problem I see is students having a vague proposal, and I will have left feedback on that pre-writing journal. So if you have questions as you draft, you can always send me an email, and then making sure that you do have those 2 sources to help you out. And so those sources, even if your proposal is personal. So like your problem, is that you are a procrastinator, but your claim that you're making is that college students need to use a planner to plan out their week ahead of time. You can still use sources to help support that. So you would go and look and see, what are some of the issues of procrastination, what are some, and then, you have to look at like mental health and physical health, how can improving procrastination help you out? Or you can also look at, benefits of how to use a planner, that kind of thing. Those would be good sources. So then, like I said, you can use AI as a tutor if you want, or you can also use BrainFuse, and just don't forget about BrainFuse. It's a really helpful tool. Over here on the side, you click on BrainFuse Online Tutoring, and then you go to the Writing Lab Submit Paper, and then remember that you're doing an argument persuasive essay here, and then you'll upload it to them. The last thing you do, obviously, is turn in the paper. You can always email it to me if you have questions about it. But just as the previous essay, this is now the second essay you turn in the class. Hopefully you're familiar with the process. Make sure that you're getting the formatting correct. Some students will go through the whole class and never get the formatting correct. You want to be real aware of how you're turning it in, especially if you're not double spacing. It makes it very hard for me to leave feedback if you don't double space, because everything's too condensed for you to see, where my comments are. So make sure that you're doing that, and then just keep in mind that there is that AI level to all of the essays in this class. If you have questions, send me an email. Otherwise, have a great week.